Welcome. My name is Adam Rinder, and this is part 2 of the conscious contact video demonstration. This next series will focus on the upper back, neck, and shoulders, and I'll offer a few techniques that you can practice to give great general therapy to release tension along the front of the chest, collarbone area, along the neck, the trapezius muscles, and to give a stretch into the upper back. So I'll invite my model, Breezy McBreezemasters Incorporated, to come lie on the mat here with me. So the first series of techniques were focused on the hips and the legs as a way to essentially release tension in the low back area. So by working on the legs, we touch the low back, we give space for the low back to release. In a sense, what we'll do here is focus on first the upper back via the front of the body. So the front of the body has relatively few muscles compared to a very complex system of muscles along the neck and upper back. So by releasing tension in just a few muscles here, we actually affect many muscles in our upper back area. The focus for the first technique will be pec minor. So if you stretch your arm out to the side like so, you can touch just beneath the head of your arm bone, press your finger pads into the flesh there, and that flesh also runs along your collarbone. So if you follow your collarbone to your shoulder, right there's a little nest, there's a little well, and that's where we'll be focused on. If you were to stretch your arm at a 45-degree angle up towards the sky, this muscle would pop out, and that's essentially what we're going for. So we'll start with a pretty general approach. I'll use both hands to palm along the front of the shoulder, looking for this muscle that we will refer to as pec minor that runs just under the head of the arm bone, underneath the collarbone at that juncture between the arm and the shoulder on the front of the body. I use the heel of my hand to find that nest, and my receiver's shoulder will fit, the roundness of the shoulder will fit into the palm of my hand here. So I'm looking for the flesh underneath the bone to sink into with the heel of my hand, and I simply use this first technique to feel. So I'm alternating pouring weight from one hand to the other, appreciating the difference from one side to the other, and looking for that nest with the heel of my hand. For Bree, I noticed that her right side feels a little stronger. Perhaps there's more development there. She might be right-handed. It's quite common. So I'll start working on this shoulder. I'm going to come to a kneeling position on my left side relative to her body, and I'll step my outside foot forward. And I'm just going to hold her wrist with my left hand and wiggle her elbow a little bit. So in this position with her elbow bent and her hand, her forearm vertical, it's going to keep the muscle that we're looking for short. If I was to stretch the muscle, I could simply take her hand towards the floor and it would start to stretch the muscle that I'm looking for. So with my finger pads, I can simply touch here and notice when the muscle shortens when I bring the hand back to a vertical position. And so that's the place where I'm going to focus my pressure with the heel of my hand. So I use my right hand, I find the nest here, and then keeping the muscle short, I sink. And as I sink, I'm paying attention to what I feel to make sure I'm applying body weight to the flesh, not pressing on a bone. And then I'm also noticing Bree's face, her breath, just to ensure that my pressure is good, it's not too much. And I can even, with my left hand, lift her elbow slightly, wiggle her elbow. And what that does is it also helps me to feel the muscle get shorter, which gives me permission to sink. And I can stay here for several breaths. As I hold this position, I'm focusing on softening my hand, relaxing my body, keeping my back straight for my own comfort, and just allowing gravity to pour through my bones. As I prepare to release, I'm going to release the weight from my right hand, and then I'll wrap my fingers over the back of the shoulder, and I'll gently wiggle the shoulder using both the wiggling of the elbow and then following with my right finger pads. And that's a nice way to simply release and move some of the energy that you build up through a pretty effective technique like that. And then you can repeat this technique several times, depending on what you feel, as well as feedback that you could receive from your partner. And then come out, shake, wiggle, and use your finger pads just to shake the shoulder a little bit. When I finish, I'll extend her arm off to the side, and I'll use my left palm on her forearm to apply firm pressure, and I can even keep my right hand on her shoulder as I palm down her forearm. And then we would repeat on the other side. I'll look for where the muscle pops up when I stretch the muscle by bringing her hand towards the floor, and then I use the heel of my hand to sink. And as I sink, I'm paying attention to how much body weight I'm giving. I notice the muscle underneath my hand. If it tenses up, I'm going to relax a little bit. Be patient. And then if the muscle is relaxed, I just keep sinking slowly. And I observe gravity pouring through my bone into this point of connection. I'm consciously relaxing my body, breathing deeply. And allowing my body weight to sink. When I come out, I'll gently wiggle the elbow, and with my finger pads, I'll follow that movement in her shoulder. For the next technique, I'll be using my feet along her shoulders. So I'll be looking to place the arch of my foot right at the top of her shoulder, between her shoulder and her neck. And so between those 2 points, you'll find that depending on the size of your foot may fit naturally into this well, the well of the shoulder, between the neck and the shoulder. If you have larger feet relative to your partner's torso, you may need to simply start with one side. Camera angles are not ideal, but we can work with it. So I'll use my foot with a flat-footed position to press towards her opposite hip. And as I do, I'm thinking of pressing through my heel. So I want to avoid catching the skin and pinching the skin, so I'm mindful of that as I press through my heel. And I might even check it with my receiver. Bree, how's that feel? Again, here, straightening my leg gives me power, allows me to relax. And I can even place my hands behind me to give me more power by pushing my hands down to press through my straight leg. You can certainly do this technique with both feet and alternate, kind of like the big cat walking. And I continue to press through my heels, and I use my hands back behind me to give me a lot of support. So this is a fantastic technique to with very little effort release tension in the trapezius muscles between the neck and the shoulder. And then building off of this, we'll introduce a technique to essentially allow our partner's body to rest in a position that facilitates opening through the upper chest. So there's a couple of steps here that are important. The first step is how to hold the head. So I'm going to practice moving the head from side to side and using my hands to cup underneath the skull with my middle finger, ring finger as the primary points of contact at the base of the skull. So if you take your fingers down the back of your head until the base of your skull, you'll find that there's these little divots on either side. And so we're aiming for those divots with our middle finger, ring finger. What I'll do is turn Bree's head in one direction so that there's space for me to place my palm underneath her head here. And even here, I can feel for those divots. Then I turn her head in the opposite direction, and now I have her head like a bowling ball in my hand. And I place my other hand behind her head. And now I have firm support of her head with my hands. In this position, I could lengthen the back of her neck easily with lots of support. So I keep that as I turn her head to one side. I'm going to use my whole palm to scoop under the base of her skull. So I have her head in one hand here. So my palm is face up. My other palm will be face down, and I'll place it at the base of her neck so that I can press her body up. And I have to be firm when I do this. So I'm preparing, I lengthen, or I actually bring her neck into flexion, and then I place my other hand behind her neck, lift her up, and then I'll place my feet underneath her upper back. So Bree, we'll turn slightly for the camera angle, so turn so your head is on this corner. So I start with my feet outside of her arms, and then when I rest my feet, I'll have my feet flexed like so, and I'll be aiming for the mid-sternum, or if you will, the highest part of the thoracic curve. So if I was looking at my own body, I'd probably be aiming somewhere right about here at the bottom tips of my shoulder blades, where my thoracic curve is more pronounced. Once again, I'll turn the head from one side to cup her head in the palm of my hand, palm face up. And then I take my other palm face down behind her neck. I lift her up, and then I flex my feet and place my toes so that they line up more or less with the bottom tips of the shoulder blades. Then I straighten my legs so that my feet can flex even further, which will be a more welcome position for my receiver. Then I take both hands, place them underneath the head with the ring finger, middle finger supporting at the base of the skull, also referred to as the occiput or the occipital ridge. And then here I give her head lots of support, and with my feet underneath the upper back, I relax my toes, allow my feet to flex naturally with my partner's body weight, and I can even gently move my feet a little bit to the right, to the left, even flex my toes back to gently articulate that movement through her upper back. This is a great place to rest, especially if you feel comfortable, if your partner feels comfortable. You can see that I'm resting my elbows on my thighs so that I'm more comfortable here, and I am giving support in my hand. So I'm using my own energy to do that. But at the same time, I'm trying to be as comfortable as I can be in my position. And we can stay here for several breaths. To come out, I'll want to cup the head in one hand, palm face up, take my other palm face down behind the neck, and I firmly press forward as I release my feet. And then I rest her upper back on the tops of my feet. And that's a nice intermediary stage. If it's difficult because of the flexibility of your feet to place your feet under your partner's upper back and have that be comfortable for you and them, this is a nice alternative. Tops of feet under the upper back. And you have a similar, not quite as deep effect. I can simply allow the head to rest. And then I'm using this part of my foot underneath the upper back as a point of leverage. Right there. And then even in this position, I can play a little bit with the tops of my feet, like so, pedaling up and down. And these techniques are fabulous because your partner's body weight is sinking into your leverage point underneath. And you can just give time for them to relax, to go deeper into the, to basically receive the top of your foot into the muscles along the upper back. One at a time, I'll release my feet. And then this would be a great opportunity to revisit the footwork along the traps. A nice natural link between two techniques. So that's going pretty well. If you're having difficulty with the lift, we can start in a seated position. Bree, would you sit up? And in this seated position, I'm going to ask Bree to straighten her legs, reach her arms back towards me, and whatever way she reaches towards me, I clasp her wrists like so. And then right at the base of her spine, I'm going to flex my feet, flare my toes, and apply a little bit of pressure through the balls of my feet. And then I'll use that same idea, and I'll walk slightly higher up her back. I'm focusing on pushing with my feet rather than pulling with my arms. So I would say, think more of just holding the wrists and extending your legs to add a little bit of a stretch. And as I walk, I'm simply noticing where her body naturally opens with that support of my feet pressing in to her upper back. And then that's a great place to start. If you want, you can start at the base of the spine, here with your feet flexed, and ask your partner to lean back. I'm going to catch her head, her neck, ask her if this feels all right. This can be quite intense for some. Bree's a yogi. She's loving this. And then here, I'll practice pressing up and walking my feet further back towards the shoulder blades, like we saw earlier. Tops of feet, and so forth. So that's a great technique to use gravity without much effort at all to give a really fantastic release to the upper back. We'll finish with a technique to work on the neck. And I'll be using the same ring finger, middle finger, as a way to create a leverage point, a point of pressure, a point of contact. So in this position, I have my left knee down, right foot flat, and I'll take my left palm to the forehead as if I was checking her temperature. I apply a soft palm here, and I simply turn her head from one side to the other. Tick, tack. As I turn her head away from me, the heel of my hand rests along her temple. So as I turn her head towards me, I'm going to use that to open the muscles along the neck, and then I'll find a point of contact. So if her cervical spine was where my fingertips are, I'll want to have my knuckles just along the muscles on the outside of her neck there. And so I use my knuckles, I make a hook, I lean back with my right hand, and I press along the temple with the heel of my left hand. And I'll repeat that, and I'll simply move my fingers to a different place along the neck. I'll lean back and add gentle pressure on the temple to deepen the stretch. So in fact, what's happening is I'm stretching the opposite side of her neck. Where my fingers are, it's shorter. I'm applying pressure directly onto the muscle. And when the muscle is short, the pressure is more welcome. If I was stretching the muscle and at the same time applying pressure, then the muscle would come to a point of resistance where it wants to protect itself. So we're actually shortening the muscle and applying pressure via body weight. I lean back, and through my knuckles, I'm able to massage the neck muscle that runs from just behind the ear down to essentially through the trapezius to the upper back. One thing to note about the movement of the neck is that the vertebrae around the neck have a lot of mobility. So while I'm applying this pressure here, her neck is slightly extending, the chin is lifting slightly. There's a little bit of side bending with her ear moving towards her opposite shoulder. And there's also a little bit of a rotation, a twist, with her chin moving towards the opposite shoulder. So there's never really a pure extension, pure side bend, pure rotation. It's always a combination of those when we're doing this technique. So it's important for you to pay attention and simply feel what is the way that the neck wants to turn, and you follow that. So we would do this on one side, and then I would swap around, do it on the other side. And again, the soft palm on the forehead begins the movement, tick, tock. When her chin is towards me, I'll wrap my opposite fingers around the back of the neck and then apply gentle pressure through the heel of my hand on the temple as we massage the muscles under our finger pads and stretch the neck on the opposite side. Stepping my outside foot forward actually gives me more leverage to lean back because I push into this foot and I'm able to lean my whole body back. So find a position that feels comfortable for you. And then we'll finish by bringing the neck to a neutral position. And it's always nice to touch the point between the eyebrows with the thumbs and take a few breaths with this simple point of connection. After my practice, I always take a moment to silently acknowledge my receiver, to thank them for being a guinea pig and for giving me the opportunity to practice and to learn.